Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to take a third path to using chord sequences as an entry point for a new composition. So in the first two videos we looked at the idea of using diatonic chords, where we just picked all the chords that were relevant to the key of C major, for example, and put those in any order, and just purely by random chance coming across chord sequences that kind of work. In the next video we looked at the concept of borrowed chords, where we used a parallel scale and looked at the differences between our original C major scale and the C natural minor scale, and used that as a basis for just increasing the palette, giving us a few more options and taking us outside of the key of C a little bit, but still kind of maintaining a central tonality so that we have something that's coherent and a good starting point. This third technique is very different. We don't take a key center or a scale as a place to start. In this case, what we do is we take a single note. So for this example, I'm going to use A flat as my common note. So what I mean by a common note is that every chord I come up with has to contain this note of A flat. So if we think about that, we basically need to start thinking about the role of the note in the chord. So for example, A flat, if it's the tonic of the chord, obviously we could have A flat major, or we could have A flat minor. We could also have A flat diminished, or we could have A flat augmented. We could also have things like A flat 7 and A flat minor 7. For the moment, let's just restrict ourselves to A flat major, A flat minor, just as a technique or a way into this. So if we're dealing with the root of the chord, we could say we have A flat major or A flat minor as my first two options. What about if it's the third of the chord? So if A flat is the third of the chord, if it's a major chord, that would be an E major. Now the A flat in this case would technically, theoretically be known as G sharp, but it's the same pitch. So we can exchange A flat or G sharp. They're enharmonics, so we can treat them the same way. So I could have an E major chord, or I could have an F minor chord, because the G sharp or A flat is the third of E major. It's also the third of F minor, just the flattened third. Okay, so there's two more chords I could have. I could have my E major, or I could have my F minor. So what about if we were to say it's the fifth of the chord? So if we have it as the fifth of the chord, then we need to start thinking about what chords contain the A flat as the fifth. So that would be D flat major or D flat minor. So let's go with those two. We have a D flat major and we have a D flat minor. So if we were to just start from those and just say, well, let's pick three of those at random again, do similar thing to what we did before, introduce a bit of randomness to this. What about if we said F minor to, let's say, A flat to D flat minor, for example. Let's see what that sounds like. So with our F minor to A flat to D flat minor, that's quite nice. And what about if we substituted that minor at the end? Maybe we put D flat major at the end instead. So now we've got an F minor. There's a little major to minor move at the end. As I've said with all of these techniques, it's not designed to give you A to Z technique for producing a chord sequence. They're designed to inspire creativity, get you thinking outside the box, and maybe playing sequences that you wouldn't normally play. As musicians, when we sit down at our instrument, we generally kind of fall into that trap of playing things we know. So what we're trying to do here is expand that, get you into playing things that you wouldn't normally play if you just sat down and noodled, so to speak. Okay, so what about if it's the seventh? So if it's the seventh, we can take this one of two ways. It could be the dominant seventh, or it could be the major seventh. So if it's the dominant seventh, the A flat is the dominant seventh of B flat. So we're looking at B flat 7 chords or B flat minor 7 chords. So here's my B flat 7, and here's my B flat minor 7. But again, you see we contain that A flat. So we could have B flat 7. We could also have B flat minor 7. And if it was the major 7, then that note would become a G sharp, and it would basically be the major 7 of A. Semitone away, which means we get things like A major 7. So let's add that one as well. We'll add an A major 7 to this. All right, so let's do this again. Let's start from a different point. Let's start from D flat minor. Let's go to A major 7. Let's go to F minor, and let's put another one on the end. Let's do a flat minor at the beginning, at the end as well. No idea what this is going to sound like. Let's have a listen. That's a bit funky in the middle. So I'm not sure about that F minor, but the rest of it I don't mind. Funny thing that's happening there as well is when I play my D flat minor chord, those 3 notes that I'm playing there actually become the 3 notes I'm playing in my A major 7. So it's the same 3 notes, just with a moving bass note. So we have a D flat minor, A major 7. Let's go for an E to the A flat minor. Okay, that sounds a little better. So maybe the F minor is not the chord in the middle there. Maybe we have the E. But it depends on the mood you're trying to create. Maybe there's something about that original progression. Yeah, it's not outlandish. It just doesn't sound like a sort of commercial pop tune, but that might not be what you're writing. It might be, you might be writing a film score. I mean, I can imagine that with some strings. It's quite a dramatic little tension moment in the middle there. That could be quite nice. Anyway, so you get the idea. Now, something you may or may not be aware of is that you can pretty much harmonize any note with any root note. What do I mean by that? So if we've got an A flat melody note and we've got an A flat root note, then as we've shown already, when our A flat is the root of the chord, we could have an A flat major or an A flat minor. And when our root is the third of the chord, then we could have things like F minor and E major. But you can pretty much pick any root note, and you just need to look at the function of the A flat. What is it in that particular key? So let's carry on around the, carry on around this and say, well, what about if we make it the second? Well, helps if I choose a pen. Let's try that again. All right, so what if I make it the second? So A flat, the major second of A flat, sorry, A flat is the major second of G flat. So I could have something like G flat sus2, or G flat major with an added 2. Let's say G flat sus2 for now. So we could have G flat sus2. All right, let's have a look at what about if it's the fourth? So what if A flat is now the fourth of the chord? So that would make it the fourth of E flat. So we could have something like E flat sus4. Let's use that. So we've got an E flat sus4 now. Okay, what about if it's the sixth of the chord? So if it's the sixth of the chord, that would make the A flat. It could either be a B6 of some kind, or a B minor 6, or it could be the minor 6th from the C, which takes us to things like C augmented, for example. So let's use those two. So we'll have a, what do we have? We're going to have a, yeah, let's go for a, yeah, let's add those. So we'll have a B flat major 6, or just a B flat 6, and then we'll have a B flat minor 6, and then we've also got, what do we say, C augmented, includes that A flat as well. So we'll have a C augmented as well. All right, so that adds a few more chords that we've got to choose from. Let's pick a few at random again. Let's go G flat sus2. Let's go to E major. Then let's pick one of the other new ones we had. What about our C augmented? And then let's finish up with a B flat minor 7. Again, no idea what this is going to sound like. Let's try this. So G flat sus2 to E, to C augmented, to B flat minor 7. I probably started that a little bit low. Let's try that again. So again, doesn't sound terribly coherent in this case. And this is the thing about this technique, is that you're not going to get the absolute out-of-the-box, gee, they just sound beautiful chord progressions that we got with the other two techniques. And the reason for that is simple. In the first two techniques, we derived our chords from a key center. C major or C natural minor is the case with the first two videos. In this case, the idea of key center is out the window. All we're doing is looking at what chords contain that note, A flat. Okay, so one of the things we can do to make this slightly more coherent is to look at the idea of root movement against our common note. So if here's my A flat, let's start plucking around with notes in the bottom end or root movements that work against that A flat. So let's say we start with F. So D's a bit funky, D flat kind of works. See, I kind of like that. Oh, that's nice. So we've got F to E flat to D flat. Let's do that. So my root movements here are F to E flat to D flat. Right, so now we start looking at the chords that we have out of that. Well, obviously the first one has to be a minor chord of some kind because A flat is the minor third of F. And then it becomes the major third of E. Becomes the sus4 of E flat. And becomes the fifth of D flat. Quite nice. And again, it's not the kind of thing that we may necessarily come about through just using diatonic chords. Certainly because that F minor to the E major movement, for example, which is quite unusual but really nice. Anyway, you can extend this idea above. If your harmonic knowledge, depends what your chord knowledge is about as to how far you can take this technique. But if you've got a grip on what 9s and 11s and 13s are, for example, then obviously we can really go to town with this. For example, we could have a B13, for example, there. So there's my B7. So there's a B13 that contains that A flat there. So yeah, it depends on what your chord knowledge is as to how far you can go with this. But yeah, you can think about what's the A flat when it's the 9th. Well, if it's the 9th, we have to add the 7th, so that gives us a certain library of chords to work with. What happens if it's the 11th? What happens if it's the 13th? But a really good way in is to say start using that root movement against the common note and see where it leads you, and then fill in the blanks by trying to find the chords that connect those. It'll make you think about things in very different ways. And like I've said before, none of these techniques are an A to Z, how do we write chord sequences. It's not what it's about. It's about just getting the creativity moving a little bit. And once you're off and running, you can kind of drop the technique. You might, in playing this, discover a chord where you think, oh, I really like that chord that doesn't contain the note of A flat. Well, it doesn't matter. If you like the chord, that's fine. Go with it. The point was that you wouldn't have got there if you hadn't started from this point. Anyway, it's a technique I use quite often and it works pretty well. So give it a try. Okay, thanks very much for watching. That pretty much wraps up this one. Let's say 3 different videos on 3 different approaches to how you can use chords as an entry point to composition. Please don't forget to like the video. That really, really helps with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel, comment and share and do all those things. There's also a Discord community, which I'll leave a link to in the description. Very small at this stage. I'm just basically getting this off the ground, but it's a great place if you want to ask me a direct question about music, not just me, but other people, or just get involved in the general discussion about anything musical. It doesn't really matter what that is. And you know, my general opinion is I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. That's what I do for my pennies. But I'm a student as well. You know, I learn every day. You know, every time I'm watching a video or I'm experimenting with an idea or somebody asks me a question, it makes me think about things in different ways. Or when I'm teaching a student and having to come up with things. So we're all learning in some form. So yeah, get involved with that discussion. It's been great to have the little bit of limited communication I've had so far with some of you, and it'd be great to have more of that. Okay, until next time, enjoy your music and see you soon.